Next, sir, I need a motion. This meeting of the steering committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in the light of coronavirus. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes.
And it looks like we've got one who's non-video. Is that possibly Cush? Commissioner Cush? Commissioner McAdoo? Okay.
First, I want to welcome Paul Johnson, our new steering committee. Mr. Johnson, we welcome you and the experience that you have.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Let's get to our agenda. First thing on our agenda is approved minutes. Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I have read over the minutes from the last meeting. I do have a copy of it here if anyone would like to look at it. I did not find anything incorrect or irregular, so I make the motion to approve those minutes.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda, I'd like to make some announcements. I would like to announce one vacancy for the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'd like to announce two vacancies for the Beer Board and one alternate. I would like to announce three vacancies for the Audit Committee. And we need one from the School Board, one from the Road Board, and one a Rutherford County citizen. And then next on our agenda, not working? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's green, you're on.
Sorry about that. So I'll do that again. I want to announce one vacancy for Board of Zoning Appeals, announce two vacancies for the Beer Board and one alternate, and I'd like to announce three vacancies for the Audit Committee, which would consist of one from the School Board, one from the Road Board, and one a Rutherford County citizen. Next on our agenda is the 2020-2021 Standing Committee recommendations. Gentlemen, you should have those on your iPad, or I had sent them with email. And do I have a motion to send these to the floor of the full commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move to carry those on to the full commission.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Rachel?
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. Next on the agenda is we need to reaffirm for our Ethics Committee, Ted Beatty, Rhonda Allen, Joanne Medlin, Robert P., and Craig Harris to the Ethics Committee. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Rachel?
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather? Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. Next on our agenda is the residency policy. I would like to call Sonia Stevenson up and talk about this. This is hiring within Rutherford County. So go ahead, Ms. Stevenson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me with my mask on? Yes, okay. So the reason I'm bringing this to you, our current residency policy exempt those individuals who were employed by Rutherford County as of June 30, 2009. Anybody who lived outside of the county at that point, as we were doing hiring and recruiting, that our wish would be that they relocate to Rutherford County within 180 days, if possible. If they could not move within that time, that should they put their home up for sale to relocate, that they would relocate to Rutherford County. And this specifically was for our public safety departments, those that would be for emergency on-calls, and also for our directors and our assistant directors was primarily who it was focused towards, anybody in public health or those type things that would be called out. As recruiting continues to be a hard thing to do for a lot of our public safety and public health departments, and actually across the county, as that becomes more and more difficult, I wanted to make sure that our policy was in compliance, because there are times when somebody applies for the position and the only person that applies, or only one or two people that apply that meet the minimum, and they don't live outside of the county. And so I want to make sure that we're in compliance with our policy that says that should we not have a qualified applicant within any of these positions, that we could go outside of the county in order to fill the position. Because I would hate for us not to have law enforcement, paramedics, EMTs, firefighters, and those such things to fill the positions. But then you also have to consider, do you want this policy to extend only to public safety and public health, or do you also want to consider applicants for directors and assistant directors positions outside of the county as well? So I'm coming to ask how you would like to address this.
Well, I'll comment. I firmly believe that with a county of 325,000 plus people, that though I do understand how hard your job is, that I do not feel that a Rutherford County citizen should have the first right to have a job here. The reason that I say that is because their salaries are paid by property tax, which is generated by people who live here. So I understand that you do have some situations to where it is tough on you, Ms. Stevenson, but I'm speaking for myself when I say that I'd like to see our policy remain the same, to where we hire Rutherford County citizens. And of course, I'll leave this open for the rest. Commissioner Reed?
Chairman. Now, I do understand, though, that if you don't have anyone from Rutherford County applies, that it is open to others outside the county, right?
Yes, sir. So currently, our application process is basically worldwide, because it's on the internet, and we have people apply from all over.
Gotcha.
And it's not, if somebody applies for a position in one of our non-public safety or on-call positions, that's not an issue. I mean, obviously, we would always want our Rutherford County citizens to have the first opportunity. We look at that but that can't be our only factor for if they're the most qualified. So if you get into a unique position, I'll just give an example of maybe a veterinarian or an engineer, somebody who we've had a difficult time. We had to reach out to universities in states surrounding Tennessee to even find an engineer and a veterinarian at one point in time, and we still don't have a full-time dentist. So when we start looking at these positions, I just want to make sure that we're not doing something that's out of compliance with what our policy says, and so that's why I brought it forth. I didn't want us to not be doing something that we shouldn't do. So if we had an applicant who was qualified, who lived here in Rutherford County, that would be a factor, but if we didn't, then I need to get some wiggle room, because...
Okay, I've got you understand. I did some checking on that. I just wanted to see where we were as far as what you were talking about right there. But I do know, for instance, in our ambulance department right there, we're right now sitting there. We have 10 spaces open right now. We do not have an application. And you talk about the number of individuals that do live here in this county. We don't have anybody applying right now, so it's wide open. So I got asking, how many do we have that are not from Rutherford County? We have quite a few. But then I got asking, I said, does that affect us in any way? And it has not. They come from all different directions, all over the place, and they do their job, and they do a good job. Some of them I know. I've been involved with them. And we got the same situation, I think, in law enforcement and all those others. So, if they're doing their job, it hasn't affected us in any way that we have to do that. But I understand what you're talking about there. But I think we're okay where we are as long as we've given that opportunity, but yet we don't just say that's all we're going to take. That's it. We're not closing the door, because we do have a lot of individuals that have served us well, and is doing a good job with it.
I just wanted to make sure that we worded it in such a way that if we did an update, should there be no qualified, that others would be considered, because currently that's not written in our policy. And so that's what we've got about 200 of public safety and public health employees out of that entire population, full-time and part-time, that do not live in the county. However, there were a large portion of those that were here before 2009. So it's not like this has all been recent, but I'm just noticing that was becoming an issue when I was looking back at the applicants. I just wanted to make sure that we were in compliance. So would this body be okay if I added language that said, should there be, and our attorney may need to guide me on how we would word that language, should a Rutherford County resident not be, I don't even know where to begin, how to state that sentence.
Ms. Stevenson and I have not discussed this at length yet, but I'm happy to meet with Sonia, and then if next month she wants to bring back some proposed language that encapsulates what I think I understand it to be, which is keep the language the same, but if there's an application that's been posted and nobody from the county, or a current resident of the county, has applied, but you have some people that are out of county, then in that circumstance, you could consider non-resident people for the position, but only if none from the county have applied, assuming the position needs to get filled.
And that
is that correct, Ms. Son? Is that what you're asking?
Right, and that meets the minimum qualifications and requirements of the job. Because
I'm happy to work with her if the committee wants me to help her with some language to bring back for the board's consideration next month. I'm happy to do that.
I have no problem with that. So how many open jobs do we have right now? So do we have a systematic problem right now?
Well, EMS, some are public safety, which is where my biggest concern, because they're the ones that are considered on-call. And so when you start looking at patrol and PAWS and ambulance, our health department, our youth services, when you start looking at those positions, I just wanted to make sure that we don't get into a situation. I just want, that we're in compliance with our policy on this. So obviously it would be, I understand why the policy was put in place, because our taxpayers pay our salaries, and we want to make sure that we keep our citizens employed. But, there's only so many paramedics, and there's so many EMTs, and there's so many RNs, and there's so many dentists and vets that, we may not have that same luxury for hiring that in public safety.
Well, as far as EMTs go, and I've talked to Chairman Reed about that, I think a lot of this problem is where we're having a little bit of going back and forth with the city on wanting to start their own ambulance service. So I believe morale is low, and I think that's some of the reasons that we're not having people apply for it. I could be wrong, but
I
that's
can tell you exactly
to my
why they're
understanding.
not applying right now. I think the mayor knows this too. There's this discussion right now between the city and the county over the ambulance service. And what that is an individual does not want to go and take a job with the county, and then all of a sudden we have this situation that's been discussed out here with possibility of a privatized ambulance service within the city, and then all of a sudden we have to do something with our ambulance service. So they're not wanting to apply for our ambulance service. As soon as we correct that and whatever, that will be available right there. But as far as, we usually have a stack of applicants, EMTs, and the paramedics that want to work with us. There's no problem there. That's what that's all about. But it's there's no low morale or anything there as far as the ambulance service is concerned. It's just basically a situation where if I have my family and I'm going to take a job where I know I've got a future long term, and that's where we are right now there. And until we have that all taken care of and that is settled, then that'll come right back where it was. I mean, I'm pretty certain of that. But the way I look at this right here, if it's working right now, I don't see nothing to fix.
Well, but there are occasions where they do hire somebody outside of the county. That's what I'm concerned about, because some of them were employed before 2009. And what's happened is if they didn't have a qualified applicant, they have had to choose somebody else. And so that's what I'm concerned about when I started looking back at that, wanting to make sure that we didn't have somebody who was trying to make sure that they were taking care of our citizens and make sure that we were staffed. So that's where my concern has come from. I wouldn't say, all of the 200 are not, some of them, many of them were here before 2009. I don't have the exact number, but there have been some that we have had to hire because we couldn't fill the position in a hard-to-fill position. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we had an exception clause in there if there were no other situations. Then the exception to the rule is. And that's what I was concerned about. It says that if they must relocate within 180 days, becoming subject to the potential for call-out, and if they couldn't relocate in 180 days, then if they did ever move, that they would have to relocate to Rutherford County. So when we put in their offer letter, we put, if they don't live in Rutherford County, we put in the letter, it is our desire that you live in Rutherford County, and should you decide to sell your home and relocate, that you relocate to Rutherford County. And then everyone else, we put, it is required that you maintain your residency in Rutherford County. So I just want to make sure there's not an exception in this rule. And that's what I'm wanting to make sure that we're in compliance with.
So what exact action do you want us to do?
I would like permission to work with our county attorney to come up with an exception line to add to the existing policy.
All right. So we have a motion for this? Commissioner Rather?
I was confused there for a minute. I was okay for a minute, then I got confused for a minute. So I do want to say I couldn't agree with Chairman Harris more, and I couldn't agree with Chairman Reed more. But I understood, based on his question, that there was that language already in there, but it's not.
Correct.
So, yes, that language needs to be there. In terms of Chairman Harris's comment, again, I couldn't agree more. But if you get on I-24 between 5:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning, how many Rutherford County residents that pay taxes are headed to another county to go to work? They'll pile up the interstate. So my point is, we've got folks that live here and work there. We got folks that live there and work here. They're coming from all directions and going in all directions. I think it kind of levels out. But my ultimate point is, whatever we need to do to attract the best qualified applicants, we need to do, because we've got jobs to fill, a county to run, departments to run, whatever that takes. And if it's adding that exclusion, I'm all for it. There's a guy who lives down the road from me, a mile from me, Williamson County Sheriff's Office. He lives in Rutherford County. He's got a take-home car. And I'm pretty certain he works in Williamson County. Maybe Wilson County, but anyway, it's all over the board. But again, we need to do what it takes to hire the best people we can hire to serve this county. And there's taxpayers going other counties, and other county taxpayers are coming here. And, likely most of those folks will probably relocate here anyway because they don't want to drive so far. And some of them won't just because they don't want to work and live in the same county and deal with the same people in Walmart that they dealt with on their job. So I'm all for the exclusion. I think you and Mr. Christensen can work that out, and we'll just get the best people we can get to fill these positions.
Okay.
Yeah, I was confused there. I thought that was already there, what you were talking about. But yeah, I can see that now. But
Okay.
yeah, you've got a motion there, I believe, Mr. Chairman. You got.
Mr. Rather, you have a motion?
I have a motion, if this is appropriate, I have a motion to allow Sonia, Ms. Stevenson, Mr. Christensen to work out that language, to put that exclusion into the policy. And now when they come up with it, do they need to come back here?
Yes.
All right. And so when they do that, they both agree and it's good, they come back here for approval. That's my motion.
I have a second. Commissioner Reed, second. Go ahead, Rachel.
Commissioner Stevens?
Sonia.
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. Next on our agenda is the gun policy. This was brought to my attention from two people. One is Sonia Stevenson, the other one is Michael Rather. I will allow Michael Rather to speak first, and then you, Sonia. Absolutely. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Plan on going first. Mr. Chairman, you and I have something in common. We have something that we're extremely passionate about. I have conducted or co-officiated 2 funerals from those who've died from opioids, and I was a pallbearer, carried one of them's casket in the funeral. I'm involved behind the scenes very quietly, but I'm very passionate about that. Another thing I'm very passionate about is when Mr. Reed brought up, Chairman Reed brought up the Second Amendment sanctuary, I was 100% on board, totally behind it, because I believe in that. And the more I live in this society, the more I'm passionate about it. So, Mr. Chairman, if you'll indulge me for a minute, I want to share just a few things with you. Mount Juliet, and I'm sure a lot of us know this, now employees can carry guns if they have a permit on duty while they're working. The exceptions are what we talked about months ago. In certain buildings, judicial proceedings, schools, they cannot do that. Mount Juliet also says that the city does not encourage employees to carry, but allows it. Tavares, Florida, and I'm bringing up Florida, and I'm going to bring up a couple more Floridas and a few other states, because these policies were put in place after a mass shooting. So I will tell you, you can ask my employees from right now to years and years ago, I'm all about being proactive and not reactive. So in Florida, Commissioner Josh Blake had brought this up and pushed his commissioners to allow guns. And I quote by Commissioner Josh Blake, "I personally believe that the natural right to defend your life does not disappear into thin air when you leave your house in the morning when you go to work." He said, "I do not think it's a reasonable thing to allow employees to utilize that right and have the right to self-defense while they're on the job." Bear with me. One of the other quotes was that it's an important thing to realize that 98% of the mass shootings occur in gun-free zones where the coward, and I couldn't have chosen a better word, who perpetrates it is in absolutely no danger. They're in no danger. That's the target they're looking for. When I was at sheriff's office as a reserve, in a school shooting or any mall shooting or whatever, when the perpetrator knew that there were other guns in the building, they typically shot themselves or took off running. A former state trooper, you may can back that up, Commissioner Johnson. And Commissioner Leslie Campione, she is not a fan of gun-free zones. She says, I completely agree. The people that are in the gun-free zones are the least safe, and they are targets, and the statistics bear that out. So that's why I would support it. It goes on and on. Okaloosa County, in Florida, I go to New Mexico. I'm going to skip through a lot of this because I know it's long. The commissioners there made the comment that we took office, we swore that we would uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of Tennessee. I'll put Tennessee because we're in Tennessee. In swearing that, it breaks my heart lately to see our federal government, even our state government, going against the Constitution and taking these rights from people who pay the bills and pay taxes. We're retracting their rights, limiting their abilities. I'm not going to go through all this. I wanted to. But I can go to Michigan, Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota, New Mexico, Florida, all over the United States. These laws are changing. They're evolving. Very recently, in the last several months, we all have heard this term called new norm. The new normal. And I hate to hear that because I'm not really sure what normal is anymore, but I miss the old normal. I don't want to adapt to a new normal. But the reality is we've got to adapt, we've got to evolve, or we're going to be left behind and become reactive and not proactive. One of the main things when I was studying all this, and it goes on and on and on, one of the main things that stuck out to me was when we say to citizens that you have a right, a constitutional right, to carry your firearm as a permit holder. You have a right to carry your firearm. You can carry it inside this building. But we say to our employees, you can't. And I won't go, I can turn this over and you can look over it. We have created another class of people. And we've said to one class of people, you can carry your gun in here. But we've said to another class of people that you can't. And that class of people are our employees. And I've said this from day one, I'll say it from now on, until somebody kicks me out of here. Our employees are the greatest asset this county has. It has always been that way. It will always be that way. And to take certain employees that may have an awful lot of money sitting in their office, you take an employee that has to go to very remote parts of this county to perform their jobs, and they're unprotected. I've driven these county roads. I've driven places in this county I didn't even know existed. Scared me to death. Go to Hippie Hill. Go up there, Berks Hollow Road. It'll scare you to death. And to have a codes enforcement person, a county engineer, planning staff, whatever, going out there, unable to protect themselves. We're creating a different class of people, and it's unconstitutional, period. Now, I want to end. I plan on going a lot longer than that. I want to make a few comments of my own. There is indeed a new normal in many aspects of our society today. There is indeed a contentious stigma concerning firearms, although it's imagined. Chairman Harris brings up a stigma with the opioid crisis. That is a very real stigma that is imagined. People make it up and it's not true. Same thing with firearms. There is indeed a growing real and present threat to life and limb each passing day of everybody in here. It's the reality we live in. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. There's indeed a critical need for all of us to become more proactive and not reactive. There's indeed a responsibility to not create another class of citizens, i.e. our employees. Now, before I say what I'm about to say, I want to clarify something. I do not believe, let me rephrase that. I believe with all my heart, there's not a single person in this room, serves on any commission, works for this county, serves on the county commission, that does not worry about, care about our employees. Okay? I want to make that very clear. I do not believe that. I believe we all care about them. But I want to make this comment. We've got to care about them not in word, but in deed. We got to care about them, worry about them. We got to let them know we care. We worry. We trust them and are confident in them. We do so by allowing them to protect themselves and possibly others and protect their constitutional rights. And that's all I have to say. I'll let you go on. If there's a motion that needs to be made, I'm prepared to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Rather. Would you like to answer that, Ms. Stevens? Or do you have anything to say?
Oh, I do have, this can go both ways. It really can go either way. Our current policy just says the possession of unauthorized firearms or lethal weapons on county property is disallowed. I went through, I believe the question was asked of me, what is considered a lethal weapon? So I contacted the sheriff's office, because who better than the sheriff's office to tell you what's considered a lethal weapon? And they provided me with all types of things, anywhere from the size of a knife to a gun to a stun gun to a gun with bullets to all different things. So the first thing is, trying to decide what is considered a weapon and what would be allowed. The other part is we researched, this was back weeks ago, probably months ago, when we first talked about this. We called all of our surrounding sister agencies. Now, Mount Juliet was not one on my list. I went back and looked to see what they had put in their policies, whether it was allowed or not allowed. And at that point in time, they were not checked Knoxville, Knox County, Chattanooga, Hamilton County, Clarksville, Montgomery County, Memphis, Shelby County, Metro, City of Murfreesboro, to see what they were allowed whenever. That's kind of the group that we use for our salary surveys, so I checked with them. And they were not at that time allowing their employees to carry at work. Now, the policy is, and always has been, that they could have it in their vehicle, in their trunk, in their car. That was allowed, just not bringing in the building. So I went further to research and pulled CTAS. You mentioned several. I read all these TCAs. And Nick, you please join in at any time. Nick and I both have read everything that we can think of to read. And there were some exceptions in here under the state that just says if you allowed it, there were some things that we could require as an employer. So if as an employer we decided that we wanted to go that route, there could be some stipulations that we put on employees, like they have a duty to notify us, and we have to make sure that law enforcement is aware, our sheriff's office and our law enforcement would be aware which employees were carrying and would be carrying at work. Let's see. My glasses can I pull this off? My glasses keep fogging up and I can't read my words. So the citation that CTAS has was TCA 39-1713-15, and it says employers may still ban weapons from the workplace other than parking areas if a notice specifying the ban is posted, which were non-posted now because the signage came down. But it says the laws does not affect employers' ability to enforce no weapons policies against employees who don't have carry permits or who attempt to carry firearms in employer-owned vehicles. So that's bringing it into our county cars. What does that look like? Employers are exempt from liability for damages, and so my next thought was like if the commission decided that they were going to allow it, that there would need to be a release from the employee, because it said the employers are exempt from liability for damages, injuries, and deaths resulting from an employee's actions involving a firearm in accordance with the law, and employers would not be responsible for stolen guns or ammunition. So that was one of the CTAS sites. Another one with the 2016 says an employee who elects to carry must provide written notification to the law enforcement agency with jurisdiction over the property owned, operating, controlled, and the employee, who their employer is. So they would have a duty to report. It would remain confidential. It says the law provides that the employee is not acting within the course and scope of employment by carrying, and so is not immune from personal liability. So if they didn't, like law enforcement do have a duty to protect. So, but if Sonia had it, that's not in my job description to provide law enforcement, then that liability would come back on me. So part of our things to protect the county's liability is that an employee would know that there would, in my mind, that there would need to be a release. Now, this is something for Nick to talk about, but these are some of the things I've came up with.
Let me stop you right there.
Okay.
I have a question for the county attorney. I understand the passion of Commissioner Rather, but the things that I worry about is I would like to see that they have a concealed permit. I mean, I'd like to see that. But also, I'm a little bit concerned about the Government Tort Liability Act. And how will this affect us if we have anything as far as like what Sonia just talked about as a liability issue? Because to my understanding, we can be held negligent if a firearm goes off. Is that correct?
Happy to comment on that. This is always this is an important issue. Let me just say that, and I understand it from both sides. One of the blessings or curses of being a county attorney is, whichever way you want to look at it, is not having. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Is not having a dog in the fight with regard to the policy decision. Thankfully, that's on you all. So I'm strictly talking about the aspect from a legal standpoint, and that's it. If the question is there the potential for liability if the county were to allow its employees to carry a weapon and, God forbid, something devastating happens where the gun goes off while at work, or say there is an intruder or somebody that's of threat and the county employee were to take it upon themselves to try and defend others, but negligently shoots another employee or does something else that could be construed as being negligent. I do think that there is the real possibility that if somebody were to file a lawsuit, they would name Rutherford County as a potential defendant. Okay? Now, on the flip side of that scenario, there also is the possibility, well, what if we don't let employees carry guns and one of those employees is injured or killed by the intruder? Could they file a lawsuit against us? Again, as this body knows, and doing this for as long as everybody has, people file lawsuits all of the time. But from a legal perspective, if I was analyzing the two scenarios, I would think that we would have a better defense under the second scenario. Okay? The reason being is that the acts attributable to the county are more direct if the employee, him or herself, is the one that is acting negligently. Mr. Rather made a good comment about two classes of people, and I think that also emphasizes the examples that I've just given, and that is that the primary difference for me from a legal perspective is that second class, and I don't mean second rate, but that second class of citizens being our county employees, their actions are intimately tied with the county. So anything that they do while in the course and scope of their employment that may injure a third party, whether it be another employee or a citizen or an aggressor, some lawyer will, if filed a lawsuit, will sue the county, and we would have to face the defense. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't argue some of the things that we would have available to us, but I am saying that in that scenario, their actions can be more directly and closely tied to attribute liability. That makes sense? And also, I think that there was, Ms. Stevenson, there was also an aspect of the insurance that I think needs to be commented on, because while that's not necessarily my expertise, I do routinely discuss with our insurance carriers and our claims people about insurance. And I know that somebody at the last steering committee meeting months ago asked about that.
So David Patterson, who is our insurance carrier, with, I think it's Assured Partners, right? I always get that confused because CCMSI was around forever. But Assured Partners, David Patterson, I reached out to him and said, you know, what would this look like for the county? Because you've got to think. And he says, well, our current policy is written, we know that there are firearms within the county because you have law enforcement. And he said the policy is written that if they, that is part of their job duties to carry to firearm, then that's what's included in the policy. But he said it is not written with the intent that all of our employees would have it, and they would have to reevaluate it if we decided to go that route. He said, while there is currently no specific exclusion or premium charge for employees carrying firearms, I am reasonably confident that underwriting will not look favorably on it. Obviously, there are positive and negatives to allowing employees to possess firearms at work. From an underwriting perspective, more guns equals more exposure to someone getting shot. So that is another thing that we would have to look at, is what does that insurance liability look for the county? We would also have to evaluate our on-the-job injury policy and program. What would that look like if somebody did discharge their gun? So there's several things that, like moving pieces, whatever the body decides, if you decide this is what we're going to implement, then we need to make sure that it, you know, all the aspects is, you know, attached to this so that we make sure that we're covered. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chairman.
Reed?
Sonia, if I understand right, you did say that as far as our employees are concerned right now, that what they have in their own personal vehicles, that does not, we have no control over that or what they do there.
Correct.
So if they are a card-carrying individual that can carry a firearm and they keep it in their car or automobile, that's not our concern. We don't check that.
Correct.
That's correct.
I'm going to look just to make sure. I've got that policy with me. Well,
What I'm saying, if they're off campus, just like anything else, that's not.
well, what the policy says is possession of unauthorized firearms or lethal weapons on county property. So technically, if we were going to be from a technical standpoint, a county parking lot would be county property. So if you decided you wanted to allow it in the vehicles, then that also would need to be updated. Does that make sense?
May I interject real quick? So I'm happy to look at that with you, Sonia. I'm not too sure that that's right. I do know that state law explicitly allows for trunk statute, and I'm fairly certain that the county follows that. So an employee can carry, at least pursuant to state law, they're allowed to carry it in their trunk.
Yeah, because it says.
Well, according,
That's what I was getting ready to add, because I thought state law did provide that, because I have to go back to my working time as with my employer as such, and that's what I would say with a county employee. They have an employer, which is the county, and the county has a set of rules, a set of responsibilities that you follow, that once you become an employee, you agree to follow what your employer asks you to do. I know as an employee that was discussed where I was too back at that time there, and at that time was that no employees would come in and carry. Even if we did have certification to carry a firearm, and I have certification. I went through a TBI firing range and learned the proper way to shoot it and all this sort of thing, and went through that training. But I was not allowed to bring one on campus as such because that's my employer, and I followed my employer's rules and regulation, and I think that's what we're doing with employees here. So I think that would be the basis of what we're looking at and the way we're working right here. So I was just trying to find out,
Yeah, it does, in 2013, the state law changed, and it does permit them to, permit holders to transport in their vehicles.
It was 13 when that happened.
Yeah.
2013 is when that went into place.
Let me step in on that. It's Tennessee Code 3917-1314. I'm going to read this for the record. While the county can regulate the carrying of firearms by its employees when acting within the course and scope of their employment, this authority is subject to limitations in Tennessee Code annotated 3917-1314. Statute provides that the county cannot prohibit employees who are handgun carrying permit holders from storing their handgun in the motor vehicle that is parked in a public or private parking area. So, does that answer your question, Commissioner Reed? Anybody else? Sonia, you more?
The only thing is, it says unauthorized firearms, and so I guess you could say if you wanted to authorize certain positions or whatever, that would make it, because it's only saying possession of unauthorized. So I don't know where you want to go with that, but I'm just trying to give you all the information that's out there.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Rather?
I'm in the corner over here.
Every time I look over there, I see Robert Stevens, so my apology.
What? Anyway, I don't know how to answer unauthorized part of it. I would assume that is a gun carried by a person that does not have a permit to carry it. And again, as we discussed months ago, I have only talked about those who have a permit to carry a handgun. I'm not talking about AR-15s and 12-gauge shotguns with plug taken out. I'm talking about handguns. And to be quite honest with you, we can sit here for hours and hours. This is it's a hot topic, but people are real skeptical, and I get the liability. There are certain counties across this nation that actually have employees sign a hold harmless and indemnity agreement. I hope that stands up in court, because I had to sign one because of COVID-19, that I wouldn't hold a school responsible if my child got a virus. We certainly should be able to have that signed, and they're even allowing it. The county can put restrictions on what they can and cannot do, the permit holders. For example, I believe it was Mount Juliet, there was a big discussion about intimidation, that if somebody just reached up and somebody saw their gun on their hip, that wasn't intimidation. But if a guy held his jacket out and say, hey, don't talk to me like that, that's intimidation, and you get fired. You're going to lose your job. You may go to jail. I do want to quote a judge. He's a Tularosa judge in New Mexico. Timothy Flores said, by not making a change, the county is actually creating, this is where I get the second class of people, not second class people. that they do not have the authority to do. He says by not doing it, you're actually creating a second class or another class of people. You're saying that people that come in through the door can be armed, concealed or not, but the people who work here cannot, Judge Flores said. By creating a second class or another class of people, it's no different than a gender ID or asking for sexual orientation. You can't do that by the Constitution. The Constitution says they have these rights, and that extends all the way to the Second Amendment, and I base this off someone who deals with nothing but the Second Amendment. And I think Nick would wholeheartedly agree with me, and probably everybody in here. You can sue the Pope for being Catholic. You can sue anybody for anything at any time. We've seen that. I've experienced it. I've seen it. We're going to face a lawsuit one way or the other. It doesn't matter. Somebody is going to sue the county, whether we do this or not, whether we say we're going to allow employees, we may face a lawsuit. Whether we say we don't allow employees, we may face a lawsuit. There could be liability down the road. Who knows? Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't try to mitigate lawsuits and reduce the risk, but at the same time, I would really hate for this discussion to have come up months and months ago, and we get in a position where we're having to react because of something tragic. And that's the end of my comments.
Well, I'll comment just a second. Me and the mayor have had somewhat discussions about this courthouse being unprotected, where he is completely open to people walking off the street, and he has no security. And so I kind of see your side on there. My biggest thing is I'm worried about liability, but we've been discussing this and it needs to go somewhere. I agree. So is there a motion? I'm sorry, let me back up. Mr. Johnson?
I have a little bit of heartburn with the employees, the scope of their duties, because the easiness or the accessibility of people being able to get a permit. There are legions of people out there that have a permit that don't need a permit. So that's what my problem is, that within the scope of their duty, and I want the employees to be protected as much as anybody, but I just got a little bit of heartburn with it.
Do we have a motion?
Well, I had one in mind until we got in this discussion, and I don't know which way it does need to go somewhere. I just don't know if it goes, do we take it back to public safety? Do we get with, let Sonia, Nick, and maybe a few others try to work out a policy? There are policies about, and I agree with you, Commissioner Johnson, permits are pretty easy to come by. But again, there are counties, and we have the right to do it too, where we can put some restrictions on that permit and make them take X amount of hours in additional firearms training, understanding the liability of that bullet, where it goes. Because the scenario I always heard was, you're liable for that bullet when you miss your guy and you shoot a busload of nuns behind you. You're liable. So there's additional training we can put in place beyond the permit class, because I took the class and it was kind of easy to get. And the governor even is laxing these gun laws, and it may be that you don't have to have a permit to get a gun anymore. So again, we're evolving in that direction. We can put whatever restriction we want to on it, but still allow an employee, in my opinion and others, their Second Amendment right to protect themselves and others if they need to. But we can put those restrictions in place that should lessen the liability and make that liability very, just reduce it, because you got better trained, you've got these restrictions, but you still allow an employee to carry their firearm if they have a permit. It's a handgun. I look at this courthouse, especially during tax season. I don't want to put any ideas in somebody's head, but it gives me a little bit of heartburn too. So again, we can put the restrictions on there. So, Mr. Chairman, I've got to put the question back to you or the mayor or Chairman Reed, Mr. Christensen. Where does this go for further discussion if we want there to be further discussion? Because anybody can work real hard to make something not happen, or they work real hard to make something happen. It's wherever people want to go. You know my position. I've been clear for months, and I'm going to be that way in a year. But where do we go? Do we still beat it up in this committee, or do we take it to public safety? Do we get the sheriff involved with Sonia and Mr. Elam, Ms. Stevenson, and Mr. Christensen? I don't know. I just think it needs to move forward. At some point, it's going to move forward, but it may be reactionary.
Chairman, did you want?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's correct that we really don't use in this commission or in the committee laying things on the table. We oftentimes will defer things, but so sometimes people will say, well, let's lay this on the table and let's come back to it at a later date. That generally is not appropriate. So either there's no motion that's made and it just kind of dies. The item dies until it's brought back up again at some later date or in a different committee. The other alternative is a motion to approve or come up with some new language that allows for county employees to carry handguns subject to input from human resources and the county attorney's office. And if that is the motion, and if it passes, then I think really instead of moving it to full commission, that language probably would be best served to come back here before this committee so that all these commissioners can look at actually what would be amended in the HR handbook. Because right now there's amorphous ideas and we're talking just generally. And so that way there'd be a concrete, here's what it is, here are the requirements. You might want to get input from the sheriff, because ultimately I think that the statute reads that he's got to actually approve all employees that are going to carry a handgun if the county's going to allow it. But that's only if the motion were to pass. If the motion's made and it doesn't pass, then it just dies again.
Well, he can also make a motion to send this before the commission, the county commission. Am I not correct? He can send this to discussion with the full commission.
Good. And again, that would be a policy decision for this board. And at least as I'm thinking about it, it may be difficult for the commission to weigh in without having something more concrete before them in terms of a written proposed amended policy.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might suggest to this committee that maybe we look at some sort of task force to review this because it's going to continue to come forward before this committee or public safety committee. Get those 5 or 6 people who are more engaged, want to spend a little bit more time and bring something concrete back to this committee. Get the sheriff involved. Get a couple of commissioners involved from both committees and come back. Listen, we're living in unprecedented times, and people, you turn the TV on and you see what's happening right now in cities all across this country. Within the last 2 weeks, the mayor's office has had 2 threats. The phone calls over the mask is just it's driving people crazy. They're either for or against. It's split. People are, I've never seen it in my 2 years or even prior, that people are our society is more volatile right now. I'll give you, I worry every night about how open this courthouse is with the funds that our property or our trustee brings in. Once we start cranking up here in a couple of months, that he brings in for property taxes. That's a vulnerable spot. I worry about there's no security, there's not law enforcement officer downstairs in the lobby of this building. As in the city, they now have someone sitting at a desk, a police officer, trained, gone through the post-commission commissioner who, you know, is properly trained. They have somebody there. They have secretaries who wear key fobs that they can hit the key fob in the event of an emergency. Things are, our lifestyles are different. I'll give you another example. We had, that I had to talk to Ms. Stevenson, and it, ultimately this scenario ended up ultimately relieving one of our employees of their employment. It was at a landfill. One of our employees, a gentleman who works for us in EMS, he and his wife came in. They were dropping off some cardboard. Another car came up and two guys get out with cardboard, and some of the cardboard they had some plastic laminate on it, and because the plastic laminate wouldn't qualify to go into the cardboard, and so our employee approached them with our EMS employee watching this whole case scenario go down. Our employee came to these two gentlemen and told them, you can't throw that in there because it's got the laminate on the cardboard. And they said, but it's cardboard. I don't care. It's got whatever's on it. You can't throw it in there. And it escalated from there. Our employee is a retired policeman from Bedford County. Well, he drew a gun. Our employee said it was a gun. It looked like a Walthrop, like James Bond as he described it. Our employee, when questioned him, said it was a stun gun. Then we had to get down. A stun gun, the ones that I've seen, are always have an orange or a bright yellow tip or a different color. They don't look like a regular pistol. So it was one word against the other. But when you go back to our policy, as Ms. Stevenson pointed out, it's still a weapon. And it was discussed whether or not, what was our definition of a weapon. Well, that could cause bodily harm, that stun gun. If you had a heart condition, you stun somebody, you could kill them. You know, so we had to discharge that employee. So these are all scenarios that need to be talked about. Things have changed probably from the last time we had this policy. Our society's changed, and maybe we need to take a look at it a little bit deeper with a little bit more forethought.
Mr. Johnson?
It's a very emotional issue, and I'm not comfortable with the 5 people that are sitting here, the onus on them of making the decision rather than going through some more committees, through public safety, and more information and more analysis. Like I said, it is an emotional issue, but I just don't think that we need to bear the burden of the 5 people that's in this committee meeting tonight to make a decision what to do with it, other than going through another committee, public safety, because the 21 commissioners, that's going to be an issue to convince them one way or the other.
Mr. Reed?
Mr. Chairman, I think just a few of us right here can see I guess I would say the tentacles that have come out of this discussion that we have here. And when I say that, I say they touch different areas of what we're talking about here. And I commend Commissioner Rather for bringing this to the floor. And then there's other items that have come in out of this, and when we get to the overall idea of protection, when we're talking about our employees, we're talking about our buildings, we're talking about everything here. I mean, we have gone out on a total direction that covers a lot. And it's not just the fact of a firearm, but it's also talking about the employees and their safety. So what I think that we do from here, and I know it's also been mentioned, we take this to the entire commission. I think we take this to the entire commission, we're going to have even more tentacles thrown out here in what we're talking about right here. So I think the idea maybe of an ad hoc committee, and we not, you know, if you brought this to public safety, they're going to do the same thing we've done here, I think, Commissioner Rather. You know how we get in back and forth over turnout gear for firemen. And you can imagine what we get in here about what we do with firearms. So I think if we could just put this to an ad hoc committee, have someone from, not necessarily the sheriff involved, but an employee that the sheriff would appoint from that area down there. The mayor could be involved in doing someone to put in there too. And then members of the commission from public safety, commissioners from public safety, from steering. And then Sonia would be involved in it too, representing that, and there's other employees. And put just that small ad hoc committee together and discuss this thing and see where we go from there. And I don't know if we, I know you can't just come out and make a motion like this, but I think we have to present that to the full commission that we're forming this ad hoc committee. And what do we do from there, County Attorney?
Yeah, Mr. Reed, I think that's right. If I could just add and make a suggestion. So maybe the way forward is for somebody to make a motion to send a recommendation to the county commission that an ad hoc committee be formed that is comprised of a designee from the sheriff's office, the mayor, the HR director, one or two members from public safety as recommended by that body, and then so that public safety, when they meet, they can nominate two to send up to the commission, and then this body also recommend one or two, probably two, or however many is going to be the same as public safety. Then you've got your full motion, you've got what this body's recommending to the county commission for them at the September meeting to approve.
Okay.
Well, I know as chairman, we can form an ad hoc committee. And me and you had talked about this, so I mean, I kind of agree. I think that's what we should do. Now, here's what I think. It should be the sheriff, Ed Elam, HR, chairman of public safety, chairman of steering, two commissioners, and mayor. That's what I think we should have. Now, that's just me. 8, and we need one more, to be honest with you. 9, we're going to go, I'm just throwing out stuff, so. Can you be on there, Nick?
Put the
Okay.
attorney on there.
Yeah.
About one of the constitutional officers. Some have their own, some have their own input, some don't.
Rob Mitchell. He shows it, that's why he's here.
We can, and I tell you what, here's what, and if y'all are for this, then we can, if y'all agree with this, if not, we can move this on. We can have the sheriff, Ed Elam, HR, chairman of public safety, chairman of steering, mayor, 2 commissioners, and we can have an elected official. Rob Mitchell, who seems to be passionate about this, we can actually put him forth, or an elected official of your choosing. if y'all for that, I mean, we can do a nine member, which gives us 5-4 vote.
So we're just making a recommendation to the full commission
The ad hoc.
for those positions. So several have been named, they're pretty in stone. So we need 2 commissioners and an elected official.
Yes.
Correct? I will make the motion that we send that on to the commission as a recommendation of what we want to do. And now, does the commission decide that elected official and the 2 other commissioners? Who decides that?
Willing to do it. I just want to make sure y'all understand that.
They could have their own handbook that follows their own policies. So,
You also might get into it where one constitutional officer gets selected and another feels like they're left out too, and they want to be on the committee. So I don't know if maybe you do 3 commissioners from public safety and 2 from steering, or vice versa, and that gets you your odd and even. I'm just throwing that in, just trying to think of potential issues that might arise.
Or we could have applications sent in before this committee and announce it and have the application sent in, and we can vote on it at our next steering committee. I can announce them.
Alternatively, that's fine. You can do that. I'm just, that's going to be a little bit of a process, and ultimately the commission's going to have to select from all those applicants to be on this ad hoc committee. There's also a way forward that, again, I'm just trying to think, maybe you do 2 from public safety and 1 from steering committee.
could see if maybe a department head who does, work under this body and that works under the mayor, where did he go? That works under the mayor be a member of it as well, I guess. I don't know.
We can do this.
You could
This is getting way more than needs to be, so let's get back on line here. The motion can be that we can have an ad hoc committee formed with a positive recommendation, and it can go before the county commission. And then we can form that within this committee. We can form that committee based on recommendations of the steering. Like, for instance, I have no problem with the chairman of public safety and someone representing public safety. I have no problem with chairman of steering and somebody representing steering. So we don't have to have all the, applications and all that. But that's entirely up to this committee. But I think what we need to do is send this with a positive recommendation to form an ad hoc committee. And then we can go over this and for the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
My question is, would the recommendation from the ad hoc committee, you saying that it would go directly to the full commission instead of coming back through the steering committee?
No, what we're doing is we're saying to the county, you can't form an ad hoc committee without the county commission's full vote. So what we're doing is we're saying we will form an ad hoc committee, and we give a positive recommendation from this committee to the county commission to form it. Once it's formed and they approve it, then we come back here and then we go over how to form that committee and who can be involved. Mr. Stevens, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you. I think we're making this a lot more complicated than it needs to be. The mayor is by default a member of every committee ex officio, and I don't think that he's a voting member of any of our committees, but he would be on anything that we have set up anyway, just ex officio. But I would make a motion that we establish an ad hoc committee that consists of the sheriff, risk management director, the HR department, the chairman of steering, and the chairman of public safety, and just leave it simple like that. And anybody can go that's interested in the topic and give comments and listen to the meetings and provide feedback for those members. But if you keep growing it to 7 to 9 to 13 to 15, eventually the number of topics that you're going to cover are going to grow. It's just going to become another quagmire. So I would suggest keeping it a small group and with good public notice so that anybody interested in the topic can go and participate. And I feel sure that group of 5 people could come up with a good plan for us to consider. So I would make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? His motion is that we form a committee, an ad hoc committee of 5 people, Commissioner Stevens, the sheriff, risk management, HR, chairman of public safety, and chairman of steering. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Now, do we have discussion? Mr. Johnson, you have anything? All right.
I do want to say, I know this has kind of been deep, but I just appreciate the willingness to move on and at least investigate and research this and try to move forward. We'll see where it goes, but I appreciate everybody's willingness to kind of be involved and try to get this worked out. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sonia.
So because there would be 2 commissioners on this, would every time the ad hoc committee get together, we would have to post it under sunshine?
Yes. Yes, you would. So I have a motion. I have a second. Any more discussion? None? Rachel?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes. Motion passes. All right, gentlemen. Last thing on our,
Litigation.
next thing on our list is litigation list. It is before you on your iPads. Is there any questions considering this list? Since there are none, we'll move on to the next. Is there any other business? Since there is none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
I had to do a vote count.